Second game in this chapter is a game between Boris Gelfand and Artur Yusupov, played in a München Invitational Grandmaster Super Tournament in 1992. And it was catastrophe, opening catastrophe game, catastrophe for Artur Yusupov, inflicted by the quick plan of Gelfand to advance his pawns on the king's side. And what happened in this game is also rather instructive, because you can use similar ideas in similar positions. So let's see basically what happened. The game started as a Bogo Indian, d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, bishop b4, knight bd2, d5. This line used to be popular. And here white does what actually sometimes also white does in some Ragozins. Queen a4 checks. He loses more or less a move, because this queen will later need to move from a4. But what he does, he forces a black knight to c6 square, where it's standing in front of his pawn. So this knight, we will see, will also need later on to move in order for black to be able to push his c-pawn and to try to create a counterplay. We have very similar, what I mentioned in, let's say, Ragozins, knight c3, d5. We also have here this queen a4 ideas. So this is a very well-known idea. Here, Boris Gelfand is playing this in Bogo Indian. Knight c6, a3, bishop e7, e3, castles, queen c2. So this queen needs to move, because, okay, it is not doing anything on a4. a5. Ideally, black would like actually to push move a4. So white plays move b3, he doesn't allow it, and he's now able to develop his bishop on a long long diagonal. Bishop d7, bishop e2, rook c8. You see, black is getting ready for his main counterplay, and this is c-pawn push. Bishop d3. Unfortunately for black, as a result of white's queen a4 check in the opening, this knight is standing in the way. So he needs to move this knight in order to be able to push c5. Knight e5. And here we have a critical moment. Yusupov needed to actually follow up on his plan and to push c5. Let's say dc5, bishop c5, castles. White is having some advantage, because white's pieces are a little bit better placed, and white has some advantage. However, Artur, I don't know why exactly, he was here thinking probably in some artificial way that white is having this battery, and this knight is protecting this pawn, so why not to play move h6, so that this pawn doesn't hang, and after white castles king side, he will basically see then as to when and how to push c5. The problem for him after h6 is that actually he's already in a very deep trouble. This careless move will bring him in a very serious trouble. And of course, Boris Gelfand does not need a written invitation for his coming action. And try to remember this, because you will get a chance in your games almost for sure once upon the time to use, or many times, to use a similar kind of plan. Gelfand here pushes g4. And now actually becomes clear why this pawn h6 was careless move and will cause Yusupov problem. Yusupov now does the only thing he can when somebody is hitting you on a flank, try to hit in the center and hope to be successful. He pushes c5, h4. What a dramatic change in only 2 moves. Look, only 2 moves ago, black's king was perfectly safe. What we have now, 2 moves later, we have this situation. White threatens g5 and basically to mate black. Black is in a very deep trouble. Most probably, actually, black position is already lost. As a result of this careless move h6 to weaken his kingside, and Gelfand sensing his chance and executing on it immediately. Bam! g4, c5, h4. Yusupov here played move a4, hoping to somehow open up the position for his pieces on a queen side, but actually there is no really good advice at this point of time. Because if you play, let's say, move like knight c6, trying to remove this attacking knight, white can choose between two reasonably good options. Well, one is knight f3, maintaining a strong piece on e5, but second one, also not a bad move, is simply straightforward g5. Knight e5, d takes e5, let's say knight g4, g takes h6, knight h6, and rook g1. White has a tremendous attack. White would also castle queenside. Black does not have a counterplay, and if black says, let's say, if I suffer, let me at least take a pawn so I know why, white has more or less winning attack. Let's say knight f3, bishop c6, c takes d5, bishop takes d5. Now how to win this game, how to bring attack home? Think about that if you have an attack which looks extremely promising, but it is not somehow winning immediately, what do? We bring extra forces. And here, how does white do it? e4, bishop to c6. How to bring an extra force? Well, this bishop is at the moment hitting his own pawn. Let's make it powerful bishop, bishop c1. And black's position now simply collapses. He has no defense here, because bishop is coming into play, and there is no defense. Yusupov pushed a4, g5. Of course, Gelfand follows a straight play. Why not? If it works, a b3, queen b3, d takes c4, bishop takes c4. Well, here Yusupov decided to sacrifice a piece with a hope to create some play, but as I said, there are no really good moves here. If knight e8, g takes h6, g6 and h5, and simply killing. g5, d5, everything opens, king has no defenders. If move like bishop c6, there are various moves here. For example, primitive move like rook g1 is winning. ag5, knight d5, g6, h6, f6. And now, for example, knight f7 should win, but there is a better move. If you are having an attack, but you don't mate immediately, but looks almost mate, bring an extra force. How do we bring here extra force into attack? Queen d1. Queen goes to h5, delivering a checkmate on h7. So this is, for example, one of the ways to win this game. Also, on bishop c6, for example, g6 is not a bad move. Bishop takes rook, take on f7. If rook f7, bishop e6, bishop d5 takes, and white is already pawn up and having an attack. So there are different ways to win this kind of game. Yusupov plays move b5, gf6, bishop f6. So black is not going to get mated. But unfortunately for black, knight d7, queen d7, bishop e2. Unfortunately for black, price that he paid for not getting mated is too high. He simply pieced down for nothing. He has only one single pawn and zero compensation, c4. Move like c takes d4 would not help, because let's say if white will take, black will maybe have some hopes, because black then already has two pawns. But white, of course, will not take. On cd4, white is going to play knight e4, hitting on a bishop. And now with bishop e5, f4. And now with bishop back, bishop takes d4. So white is actually winning back his pawn, and here position is of course over, because black has only one pawn for a piece. Yusupov will play move c4, queen c2, Same story, more or less. He now hopes to create some pins, c3, bishop c3, bishop e7, but there are no threats. Actually, frankly speaking, I do not know why didn't he resign, because it is a full piece. There are different ways to win this position, but Gelfand plays the most principal way. He actually continues playing for attack. He utilizes the g file. Rook g1, queen c7. Gelfand trusts his calculation, why not? Knight e4, f5, d5. Threat is to take on g7, e5, d6, opening up the position, bishop d6, knight d6, two beautiful bishops, out of one of which is extra. Queen c3, the only way, but now queen c3, rook c3, knight b5, knight b5, bishop b5. We have ending where white is a full piece up. Well, black is not really in the mood to resign. I guess a hope dies last. e4, e4, a5, rook fc8, rook g4, f3, a5, pawns are there to be pushed, rook 3 to c5, rook b4, rook d8, a6, pushing pawn, rook c7, rook b3, and okay, black here finally decided to resign. This game is actually very instructive as to, in this position, how a small, careless move, and you would say like constructive move, can make such a huge difference. This move h6, in a higher sense, decided the game after g4 as early as move 13. And this is somehow a very nice example of a swift punishment if your opponent gives you such a kind of possibility. So if you get it in your games, look out for it, because you will get this opportunity.